All right, guys, basketball is almost back. Today, let's talk about the Utah Jazz, everyone's favorite team, right? Before we get started, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to the channel, guys. I appreciate it. It helps it grow. It helps the algorithms and everything. And why wouldn't we want this channel to grow? Spread the word of the Utah Jazz. All right, guys. It's finally coming back. I don't know about you, but I am excited for basketball to be back. And we're finally seeing videos of the Utah Jazz playing together on the court. And if I'm a Utah Jazz fan, with everything that has gone wrong for the Jazz, they still have a chance to be really good. I've heard some things from inside camp, guys, things that should get everyone a little bit excited. And one of those things that I've heard is that Mike Conley looks like Mike Conley again. For whatever reason, in his offseason before he came to the Jazz, things just didn't go very well, and the season just started off pretty terribly with he started the season off with that long miss streak where it took forever for him to make a three and all these things, and then he got hurt once or twice, missed a lot of games. But by the end of the season, when the national people had stopped watching the Jazz, is when Mike Conley really started to turn it on. The only issue with Utah was the long, it's not overblown because it's very real, and it was very real. And we saw why, during the coronavirus things and everything, but the feud between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and I don't know if a feud is the right word, but more just like this cold, like bad relationship vibes going on between the two that really created a lot of problems and spilled over onto the court and caused players to not play to their best ability because of these on-court issues. Rudy Gobert not giving all his effort all the time on the defensive effort because on the offensive end he wasn't getting the ball. Donovan Mitchell not giving him the ball on the offensive end because of all these things going on. And honestly, I think those things in a lot of ways might be behind us. I guess we'll see in the bubble. But Donovan Mitchell, you've got to give him a little bit of slack. If you're Rudy Gobert, he's learning on the job in a lot of ways in terms of being a point guard at times, distributing the ball. He's never had the ball this much in his hands, even going back to his Louisville days. So you're asking a lot of Donovan Mitchell. He needs to get better. And by the way, he will get better because we've seen that his passing, when he's focused on it, is fantastic. But I think that relationship is going to warm up again. I don't think they'll ever be best friends. They're probably never going to be guys that hang out a lot together. They're just very different people who play very different styles, and they have competing interests a lot of the time because they want to be the face of the franchise. And, in reality, it's going to be Donovan Mitchell just because he's playing a position that's flashier. And we saw in that piece by Tim McMahon that Rudy Gobert understands that. But I think that Donovan Mitchell, one of his next step, obviously, is improving his playmaking ability and shooting and things like that. But another thing is just leadership. Sometimes you're going to have a guy on your team that you're just not, you don't click with very well, but you've got to be good teammates. And so you've got to find a way to make those guys want to play better. It's like what Kobe Bryant said, the advice that Michael Jordan gave him. I was listening to this the other day where Kobe Bryant talked about how Michael Jordan just talked about the importance of getting everything you can out of the teammates around you. And if Donovan Mitchell wants to get to that next level as like a leader of the team, that's what you got to do. And sometimes that means being with someone that's not your favorite guy. We all know what that's like at the office, where it's like the sales guy that's really kind of no fun to be around, but he gets results. So you got to make him happy. You just got to figure it out, because guess what? As a team, you succeed. And if one of your best players is faltering, you're not going to play as well or do as well as a company or something like that. So there's the story that relates to all of the people. But anyways, I've heard some things. Some little birdies told me that Mike Conley looks fantastic, and he looks healthy, and he looks like he's got his spring back. We might be seeing Memphis Mike Conley, and that is going to be a big deal for the Utah Jazz, because guess what? They are losing out on a big offensive threat in Bojan Bogdanovic. It's not easy to just replace 20 points per game at such a high efficiency on offense. Now, the defense is going to be replaced easily, if not be a much bigger improvement, because you're going to see more Royce O'Neal, which is fantastic on the defensive end because of his ability to play defense 1 through 4 and be just a bulldog on the ball and guard the best guy on the other team. That allows other players, like, if you're playing the Clippers, you can put Royce O'Neal on Kawhi, and then Joe Ingles can guard his son Paul George, And that really helps out the Jazz in a situation like that. It's always easy when a father can guard his son. It really is. Like when my dad used to guard me and used to like back me down when I was like 11, that's what Joe Ingles will do with his son, Paul George. So that's going to be very effective. I had another thing that I wanted to talk about. Joe Ingles is going to be better. Guess what? Joe Ingles went 2 seasons ago, NBA season, and then before this last season, he went to the Olympics with Team Australia. And then last season, plays another, this current season we're in, I guess, technically, it feels like last season, we'll play it again. He never went without rest. And this current season, he has had a shooting slump. He's in the upper 30s instead of the lower 40s in 3-point percentage. And I think that's because he's worn out. How nice is it going to be to have a fresh, healthy Joe Ingles? It's going to be fantastic. Now, the Jazz are going to a bubble where you're playing like games every other day, and there's like a stretch where the Jazz play like 4 games in 6 nights. The thing is, everyone's doing that. It's going to be rough. The Jazz are going to need to find production from bench players. I hope we see Rajon Tucker. I hope we see Jarrell Brantley. We hope we see Juwan Morgan, give some minutes so these guys aren't playing more than like 32 a night at max, because you're going to need to keep these guys rested to win games, to hopefully get a nice seeding in the playoffs. It's going to be a fun playoffs, but you don't want to be just completely exhausted. These games are going to come. It's going to be rapid fire, guys. Every night we're doing shows, baby. I hope you're liked and subscribed. But the exciting thing is that Joe Ingles is going to be well rested, and while they're going into training camp right now, it's going to be fantastic. The other reason that Jazz fans should be excited, and the Nationals don't watch the Jazz. They just don't. Zach Lowe, for whatever reason, not a big fan of the Jazz and the Jazz fans and anything Jazz lately, for whatever reason. But someone like Zach Lowe will see that Rudy Gobert is the defensive player of the year if he wants to be. And this season, for whatever reason, Rudy Gobert decided that he wanted to prove his value on the court, and how he was going to do that is show what happens. And this really kind of happened post-All-Star break. It just shows what happens when he doesn't give full effort on defense, and he wouldn't cover guys behind them and things like that. And we saw it on the court. And if you don't agree, go watch the film. Rudy Gobert showed how valuable he was in kind of not the greatest way, Rudy, but that just shows that when Rudy is going to be locked in, and he's going to be locked in, by the way, because he is going to be playing for a contract, and he's going to be a dominant monster, and he probably solidifies his DPOY in the bubble, because I don't believe voting has happened yet. If it has, let me know in the comments, but I believe it hasn't happened yet. We might be getting bubble votes for Rudy Gobert in the bubble, and guess what? It's going to be just a dominant force. We really have a chance to see Utah become incredible, because we'll have better Mike Conley, who, by the way, will get the ball in his hands more often. We'll have less isolations for Bojan, which is actually probably a pretty good thing. He's a better isolation player than you'd think, but so many turnovers from Bojan for whatever reason. Quinn used to give him the ball in those situations. That ball will be in Mike Conley's hands. And so instead of getting Bojan with the spot-up threes, which is a big miss, by the way, or a big loss, Bojan is such an incredible spot-up shooter, probably the best in the league. That's going to go to Royce O'Neal, who's a good 3-point shooter. Those shots are going to go to Joe Ingles. And you're going to put shooters around Rudy Gobert, who's going to be playing for a contract and prove his value and prove his worthiness of a supermax or a max. He's going to be playing for that. Whether he gets it, I don't know. But he's going to play to prove those things. And you're going to also have Donovan Mitchell, who is on the verge of a supermax. He's going to be playing to prove things. And Mike Conley as well, to prove his value, because Mike Conley took a lot of hits in the PR department this year with his play. And he's going to be able to prove some things that we all expected and we hoped for. We're finally going to see them. So I'm excited to see the Jazz play. I mean, not just because I love the Jazz, but because the Jazz are going to be really good. And expect this Jazz team to do things that maybe we hoped for before the season started, but now we'll actually see them, because it's like a second mini camp for Mike Conley. And he's probably fresher and healthier, and I think he made a comment about that. He's fresher and healthier than he's ever been. This Jazz team has a chance to be lights out on both ends of the floor. They're probably not going to be the number 1 offense, but they could be top 10. And they're probably not going to be the number 1 defense, but they're going to be top 5. They're going to be super good. And top 10 in both categories means you're a championship caliber team, and that's what this Jazz team is. As much as people want to disagree with that, when this Jazz team is on all cylinders playing really well, they're hard to beat, because on both ends of the floor, they have a chance to be elite at times. And so, exciting stuff. Guys, like I said, like and subscribe this channel. I will talk to you later.